We're going to go deep this week, guys. Strap in. Hi, this is Erin and welcome to Everything EFL, my little podcast about teaching English language and other teachy stuff too. Credit and honourable mentions will be given where possible during the episode or in the show notes. Let's crack on. Got a lot of feelings running through me today. We're going to explore that. It's going to be a bit different this week. Why? Well, that's the beauty of having your own podcast. You can pretty much do whatever you want. It's linked to teaching in the most tenuous of ways, in that a lot of teachers are going through a lot of frustration, anxiety, disappointment at the moment. But you don't have to be a teacher to have experienced these emotions, especially in the last year. Personally, I've been out of work. This lockdown feels like it's going on forever. My family, they're in the UK. My parents are ageing. I've got a sister and a niece who need me and I need them. There's no staff room, there's no colleagues, there's no banter. You know, I really miss my old life. So if you feel in need of a little something, stay with me. I can sprinkle a little bit of something sweet and special over you today and hopefully dilute these feelings. Okay, where to start? Okay, well, I've had an epiphany of sorts. There's 3 things in the space of the last 6 months or so that's just allowed me to hit some kind of creative sweet spot in my psyche. It's enabled me to be really productive and creative, and my brain is just fired up, man. It really is firing on all cylinders, and it is quite exhausting. I don't sleep much at the moment because these thoughts just ping into my brain, but at the same time I'm loving it. So I just want to share the 3 things with you, and maybe it will resonate with you. I really hope it does. Okay, let's crack on. So number 1, my changing relationship with Instagram. I don't know about you guys, but I only joined Instagram last year. I resisted it for a long time. I just felt it was this epicenter of narcissism, and you know, you can encounter like the worst forms of vanity and corporate greed and things like that. But I found my people and things changed. I've got to be honest, this is all about honesty this week. I joined Instagram to try and grow my account, to try and get more podcast listeners, and you know, to do that, you have to engage. And I used to dread it. It just felt so forced. But, you know, you do find people that you'll look at their posts and you think, yeah, that resonates with me. Yeah, no, I really believe that. If you find people that you feel like you connect with, it's not going to be everyone. It might not even be most people. But if you start making those connections with those people, then that can really turn into something special. Now, if posting relentlessly and making story after story isn't your thing, you don't have to put yourself out there either to do this. You can offer support, encouragement. You can be somebody to lean on. And that's every bit as valid as, you know, posting practical tips and videos and inspirational quotes. Most relationships are of a transactional nature. Now, you know, when you're younger, it could be, you know, you look at this person. Can I have a good laugh with this person when I go out? Can I get drunk with this person and have a good time? Or this person works in a bar. I can get cheap drinks off of them. What can I get from them? But I think as you get older, or certainly as I've got older, it's okay to ask yourself, what can I get from this person? As long as it's, what can I learn from this person? And what can they learn from me? Remember, transactional, it's a 2-way street. So if you need some support, or if you're having a particular issue in the classroom or with your school, or even in the wider context of life in general, you're not alone. Someone's bound to be living through the same experience as you. So why don't we support each other? You don't know where these relationships will lead, which is exciting. But guaranteed, if you find someone you can connect with, you're going to learn from each other. Okay, so if you'll just allow me to indulge myself for a couple of minutes, I am going to throw out some honourable mentions of some people that I've met over Instagram in the last 6 months that have really changed me for the better. The first one is Erin Myers. You sweet, sweet woman. Our connection was pretty instant. Now, I kind of have this feeling that if we were 10 years younger, or me 20 years younger, and in college together, you know, we'd probably get ourselves and each other into quite a lot of trouble. You know, every time I speak to her, I just feel our connection getting stronger, and I just love it. Check out her podcast, The Educator's Mindset. Her ultimate focus is the well-being of teachers and students, and we collaborate together on episodes 32 and 33 of my podcast, so check those out as well if you're interested. The second one is a beautiful, compassionate soul by the name of Angeli Beverley. She's known as Mrs. Cleverly Beverley on Instagram. She is all about creating an environment of compassion and kindness and inclusivity for her students. You can tell that she just gives everything to her job, and it's just I'm so inspired by her. We did an episode together, episode 36, changing the historical narrative in your classroom, and it's all about inclusivity, uplifting your students, giving them some self-worth in a society that doesn't necessarily recognize that. She told me this week that someone had actually watched our episode. It's on IGTV as well. And she got an offer to speak on another platform. And honestly, you don't know how happy that makes me. It's just gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling inside. I urge you to check out her Instagram profile. Her posts are very inspirational. They're truthful. They're honest. And I think you'll just get a lot from her. And hopefully she'll get a lot from you. And my final honourable mention is Melinda Thomas. She runs the New Teachers Connect Instagram page for new teachers, obviously. She wants to offer a lot of support because we need it. We recorded a few weeks ago. We recorded an episode about advice for new teachers a few weeks ago. And this week I tried to edit it and cut it down because we ended up talking for an hour. I just couldn't. So it's going to be a long one, but I can't wait to release it because she works in a state school with young children and I work in a private language school, mostly teaching young adults. So the idea was, can we meet in the middle as teachers with our advice? And these are the people I want to hang out with online. So I encourage you to join Instagram, foster more relationships, maybe with someone you messaged ages ago. Check in with them. Is there anything you can do to support them? Are they having a hard time at the moment? Maybe you need some support that only a teacher would understand. Put yourself out there and it will come back to you. Positive engagement, it creates positive and inspired ideas, and maybe your staff room or your management isn't quite doing that job, so use the Instagram community to do that. So my mind was kind of travelling in this mad 100 miles an hour direction when I watched a documentary on Netflix called The Creative Brain, and I'm going to try to nutshell it because there was a lot packed in there. So it basically talks about how to sort of wield and harness and wrangle and use the creativity that we have. As humans, we have the ability in our brain to delay our responses and reactions and store this input away for a later date. Now, this input sort of mixes and collides with what's already in your brain, and we can process that information in almost limitless ways. And together with our imagination, which is also what makes us uniquely human, that is the foundation of creativity. And you are wired for creativity, whether you think you are or not. And there are 3 ways you can harness this according to the documentary. So the first one, and I think this is really interesting, it's not so much about innovation, about inventing new things. It's about refashioning what already exists. You're not reinventing the wheel, which is quite a refreshing thought, isn't it? I mean, maybe in your mind, a creative person is someone who comes up with new ideas all the time. It's not. You take ideas that are already there and you use them in a different context. You use your environment and your experience. You take new information, but you combine it with what you already know. And here's the kicker. Your life experience makes you creatively unique. Use what's already there in your mind. And then number 2, what you need to do now is dig a little deeper. Get off that path of least resistance. Don't go for the obvious, easy answer. Don't replicate what you've done before. Wasn't it Einstein who said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? Try something new. Our brains are novelty seeking. Push boundaries, explore those possibilities, mix the familiar with the unexpected and see what happens. Now, in the context of a teacher, this can be something really simple, of just trying out a new idea or a new methodology or a new lesson plan that you've been thinking about, but push yourself outside that comfort zone. Will this idea work? It might give you that flutter of uncertainty in your belly. You may just be comfortable with what you already do, but where does that comfort get you? Where's the progress and development? Don't you want to feel that fire in your belly again? Do you remember that excitement, that thrill of the unknown when you first started teaching? Why do you care if the lesson bombs so much? Which kind of leads to the last point, And that is, we are scared of the risk of failure. So naturally we try and avoid it. But what we really need to do is confront it. We need to stare failure in the face. Failure is the first attempt at learning. This is where you reflect, and reflection is a huge creative tool. So your lesson bombed. So what? Let's talk about it. Was it your instructions? Was your timing all skewed? Was it the dynamics of the class? Is it because you're teaching online and some technology failed? Did the topic fail to engage the students? Pick a reason, make a change to your lesson plan and your delivery of it. What's the big deal? Now, there are loads of examples in this documentary of people doing amazing things, but I'm just going to talk about one, and it was the one that touched me the most. So there's an author who works in prison rehabilitation. That's definitely something I'd like to explore in another podcast. And he helps hone the writing skills of those who have basically been reduced only to their worst mistakes. And he gives them an opportunity to speak their truths, despite how society may see them. And their self-worth just shot up. And it just proves to me that finding your creative outlet can be really therapeutic. I found it really, really useful and very inspiring. Look, it is Netflix, so it is made for mass consumption. But there's just a lot of really good stuff in there, I think, that just makes you think. And if you think you're not a creative person, I think teachers are generally quite creative. But if you're not a teacher and you're listening to this and you don't think you're creative, this might give you a bit of food for thought. On to my last thing. I don't know about you, but I am a podcast addict. As soon as I get up in the morning and I make my tea, I turn on a podcast. If I'm cleaning, if I'm walking the dog, if I'm exercising or doing my physio, I will listen to a podcast. Now, I usually listen to a lot of true crime, but I found myself moving away from that in the last month or so. Maybe it's just that I don't want to kill my buzz that I've got going on. Who knows? Anyway, so I want to talk about a podcast that I discovered from the pure soul that is Jonathan Brookins, and he has a podcast called The Work. Now, he's a very interesting individual. He's from an MMA background, but he's not what you would expect. If your vision of an MMA fighter is a cock of the walk, Conor McGregor type, then just no, basically. He's very sweet and kind and humble and gentle even. And I would advise you to go from episode 1, because this podcast is about his journey. It's called The Work because the work is many things. As I understand it, it's working to make yourself a better person, to heal yourself from past traumas, to understand yourself, to learn things about yourself and others and life, reflect on your behaviours, seek to make changes to your behaviours, to be kind and compassionate to others, and to find your community. Every episode is like taking a warm bath. Except episode 7. This was more like a gentle but powerful punch in the gut. He really lays himself bare with some of the stuff he's gone through and still going through. And it's rare to find someone that honest. And also who's trying to really better himself. Now, he might not be everyone's cup of tea. You might find it a little bit intense, but at the end of the day, if the message is a kind and compassionate one, there are no negatives to that. I'm pretty sure something he says will resonate with you. And for me, most of the stuff he says, it aligns pretty well with my thoughts. He's just much more able to articulate them a lot better than me. And in fact, we exchanged some messages, and his eloquence and well thought out responses has made me go back, rework and re-record this episode. I had it all wrapped up a couple of days ago, ready to go, but that simple exchange of meaningful words has made me want to up my game. So thanks, Jonathan. Now, going back to my experiences with Instagram, keywords here: community, engagement, positivity, inspiration, encouragement, support, friendships, connections, ideas, learning from each other. The richest thing you can do is learn. Jonathan's podcast reflects all of that for me. Now, he's just released a new episode after a very long absence, to which I say, welcome back, Jonathan Brookins. The world needs you. Going back to the transactional nature of relationships, I've already learnt a lot from Jonathan, and to be honest, I'm sitting here scratching my head going, what can he learn from me? What can he take from me? Maybe that'll work itself out in time. You know, these things do take time. And to use a Jonathan Brookins phrase, you need time to nourish these connections, make them grow. And they can't be forced. You know, if you want to be in someone's gang and they don't want you in there, you're not going to get in. Or if you're in a relationship and your partner is constantly bending you to their will, that's only going to lead to something quite toxic. So you just have to kind of let these things grow and just see what happens. So with all that said, I would like to encourage you, the listener, to do a few things, whether you're a teacher or not. Firstly, join a social media page that is aligned with your occupation or interests, but make sure it's one where everyone behaves kindly. If you are a member of a page or an account, or even if you have a friend who posts negative, toxic things, unfollow them, unjoin the group, find something better. I got into gardening last year. How it soothes my soul, I cannot tell you. If you garden, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I joined a couple of gardening groups on Facebook, as well as opening up myself to the teacher community on Instagram. And I ask you this: have you ever met an angry gardener? Just leave that little thought there with you. Another thing I'd like you to do is leave a kind, well thought out and meaningful comment on somebody's post. I guarantee the recipient of that will be grateful, and you don't know where that conversation will lead. Next thing, try something new. If you're a teacher, what small change can you make to your lessons? What are you afraid of? Pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is a good thing. Remember that fire in your belly that we talked about? Not ready for that? Okay, then maybe just chill on the couch and watch The Creative Brain on Netflix. It just might give you the kick up the bum that you need. The next thing, learn something new. Now, I recommend listening to a podcast because it's something you can do while you're doing something else, while you're on the go. And you know my personal recommendation. The work might not be for everyone, but if something Jonathan Brookins says resonates with just one person listening to this podcast, then my work here is done. Now, much as I would love it to, this episode isn't going to solve all your problems, but I'm hoping that it might change your mindset to a more positive one. So, in summary, I believe that unleashing your creative potential, whatever that may be, is one of the keys to becoming happier. I believe that creating genuine connections with people is at the heart of being a happier, better person. Surrounding yourselves with the right people, be it at home, your staff room, with your colleagues, your friends, your social media community. These connections can be a teaching tool that will push us to become better. I believe there's a time and a place for solitude and introspection, but we need to band together now more than ever to get through not only this weird ride called life, but for some, a kind word might help them just get through the day. I believe that all these things mentioned will help you learn. I'm not a learner in the sense I can learn a new skill. I don't have the patience, but I like learning stuff. I like learning things from people, podcasts. You can store this information away and use it again somehow. And again, that circles back to creativity. And finally, I believe as teachers, we have a responsibility to use our creativity to plan interesting and engaging lessons, and in turn help our students to become more rounded, fulfilled, critical thinking, happy, creative individuals. And in this era of league tables and performances in exams, it's up to you to encourage and inspire your students to the best of your ability. But maybe you feel you're not able. Well, allow me to address that with one statement. You are. So dig deep, and all of these things I talked about today could and might help you unleash your creative beast. I'll be back with a more teachy episode next week, I promise. But in the meantime, if you feel like this episode will do somebody some good, share it with them. I hope you'll join me next week. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Everything EFL on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, and engage with me and my followers. If you have a suggestion, idea, or any feedback, my email is on the show notes. Finally, and most importantly, share this episode on social media and tell your colleagues. Share the love. Bye.